to you. You can depend on God to see it through. You can depend on me to pray for you. All right, we are going to talk about money today. And we are Otis and FINANCAIL.
Hello there.
And this is January. And we are in our first session. And we're calling this session the Financial Money Tune-Up. And we look something like this that we have prepared for you in a PowerPoint. And we'll be going through this at various times. Before we get into this, I want to just say we appreciate the efforts that you've made to get with us today. There's a lot of things out there, and of course, hopefully this will be beneficial for your time. We do have quite a bit involved. It may be a little longer than we anticipated, but I think one of the things I like about this is life-changing because it changed my life. I'm going to just share just a little bit before we actually get into the program. And Quinetta can hear some of this because she may have heard it, I think. But in the first marriage I was with Talina, I was the problem in the marriage financially because of credit cards. And I was definitely spending a lot. I'll be the one to bring home a new car without, talking about it. And it was got pretty bad.
Sure did.
It got pretty bad.
Without discussion.
And and so what happened at a point in time, I ended up going to a Bible study class that was being a video shown by a pastor, and he was showing a video by Larry Burkett. It was how to manage your money. And I've walked out of that, I don't know how many times, stroke. I walked out of it because I was doing so many things wrong that was hitting me that I just couldn't take it. And I just walked out. I was really getting beat up.
That was a wake-up call.
It was. I was violating so many principles, and I would come back, and that began a session where I began to follow these principles that we're going to talk about now. And we went from being in a very bad debt situation to a situation, and it didn't happen overnight, it took years, but we got in a situation where we had a budget, and it's not a bad word, but we had a budget such that it was designed through growth that it could take care of the unexpected and expected needs. Now, when I first heard that, I thought there's no way it could take care of unexpected needs, but that's what good planning does. And a lot of times when we don't plan stuff, it catches us because we didn't, but it was there all the time. Like if you have a quarterly payment or a 6-month payment, as opposed to an annual payment, it's going to come at those times, but we sometimes just focus on the monthly payment. So when that 6-month payment or the annual was like, whoa, but if you save so much every month, it was a $300 annual bill. If you paid $25 to yourself every month, when the $300 bill came down, it would already be there. So that's unexpected. Christmas, if you saved every so much a month, when Christmas comes, so you can manage some things, but
I like the squirrel storing up nuts.
it is, it is, and it takes a lot of pressure off. We were able to look at the budget and say, okay, what can I spend? The tires going to cost $600. We look at the budget for tires, and we had $1,000 had been saved in there. And so you just go ahead and buy them. And then again, this took over, I think, at least over 24 months before we started seeing that accumulation of results.
See the returns.
Right? Like, and some of this was baby stuff. Like the first thing was just, I need to save $1,000. How many people actually have $1,000 right now? Well, if you don't, that should be your first savings goal, right? And that you don't touch, right? Because you have unexpected things come up, and then what you're going to do, you got to borrow, you got to use your credit card, get further in debt. Anyway, so what I'm saying is I'm sharing stuff with you now that I went through. And we're now at 67, enjoying the benefits of what I did in the 20s. Yeah. And so it's a whole nother story now. So I'm thanking God for that, and I'm thanking God for my wonderful wife that I have now, and enjoying the benefits of what we've learned. And let's look into what we have before us as we're going to get into the slide presentation. And I would say most people, they think that they just, they just had enough money, right? And all their problems just go away. But most of them don't realize that money, or at least the use of it, and this was a statement that really interested me, it's an outside indicator of an inward spiritual condition. Let that one soak in for a few minutes, right?
Well, for food for thought.
Let that one soak in, because that grabbed me. Thus, because of the tangibility of money, it is a testing ground before God for our willingness to surrender ourselves to Him. So it's really, this money it's like a window. It'll tell you that one of the things when I said not too long ago, a person that had come into a lot of money, and people would say, well, the money corrupted him or her, right? But reality, the money gave them the opportunity to demonstrate what was already there. Because money is not bad nor good, but it can show you your heart. And so that's what we're going to begin to look at, our heart attitude.
That's good. That's a good concept there. Many times we're always looking for things that we don't have. And a lot of times we really don't need them, but we think, oh, I gotta have it, I gotta have it. And there isn't the money there to support our desires. So we're to reflect and appreciate those things that we actually have and actually take an inventory of what we need. Because God said He supply our needs. And, He'll give us some of our wants and desires, but we have to be reasonable too and think about that and what impact it's going to have on the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's look at, this is kind of like I want to see where you are. Now, the book has been revised quite a few times, but I still like it. It's old, but it's not old, because the concept about money and numbers, it just doesn't change. It's just a different presentation style, but 2 + 2 is going to always be 4. I mean, it just doesn't change. And so, but here's the thing. What's your definition of wealth? I'd like to, why would you define it? And, what's the most important thing that God is concerned about in the area of money? What is that to you? What do you think that is? What does stewardship mean? How do you define stewardship? And what's number 4, Ann?
Well, it says the first step toward financial freedom is.
I wonder what that is. The first step toward financial freedom.
What is the first step toward financial
How about
freedom?
that? What about this one? Is inheritance, is it scriptural?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't ask them.
Well, you asked me.
We just throwing them out right now to them.
I think of many times in the Bible how inheritance was.
You're right.
Sometimes it wasn't followed.
Well, you be thinking about what people say sometimes, And how does what about bankruptcy? Is it permissible according to the year of remission? Don't answer it.
I won't answer it.
Just let people think about those. So what I do with this one, if I was in the class and we were in, not virtual, everybody would have this, and they would fill it out and then put their name on it and turn it back into us. And then we would give the same questionnaire to them after the class is finished, which in this particular class has been 13 weeks, and compare their answers with the first ones. So let's go on into this. Some people say, well, why do you want to talk about church and finances? So some people, they enact and they don't think like, you should be doing that. But here's some statistics that really show why we should be, and we'll just take them to tag team them, right? Okay. So 40% of the church is overspending every month. That means they're spending money they don't have.
20% of the couples on the verge of divorce. I wonder why.
And this is the interesting thing. 50% of those that do get a divorce from their marriage, of that 50%, 90% said the reason was financial difficulties. So this is why this subject is important.
Yeah, 40% pay $2,000 a year in credit card interest. That's a lot of money.
That they don't have.
That they don't have.
You know, and if you just pay the minimum amount, they get you there.
And actually, it depends on how many credit cards you have.
Oh my goodness.
So it actually could exceed that.
Oh, how many credit cards should you have?
Yeah, you know.
One. We're not going to talk a whole lot about credit cards in this session. It comes in that financial workshop. But I just throw this little tidbit out. If you do have one, or if you do have many, then you should pay them off in 30 days. The ones you can't pay off in 30 days, you do some surgery on them.
Cut them, but that debt still is hanging over your head until you get rid of it, and that increases the interest. So
the interest is still there.
It's still there.
The good point on that, and you're absolutely right. The good point is you're not adding anymore.
Right.
So now you can
Unless
at least
you remember the number.
Because what you want to do is stop this bleeding.
Right.
So that you can get control of it. But
take it off of your Facebook accounts. Take it off of your online, you know, because you don't have to have the card to make purchases.
Oh, and that's the truth.
You know, as long as you save that number, and, you know, get rid of that information, because it's always that temptation.
You got to do it. And it's a lot we could say on it, and good input, because this is how people get in trouble. It's amazing. If I gave you the cash to buy the same item as opposed to the card, you'd think twice about it using the cash, but you don't think anything about the card. But that's still going to come back at you. And when we look at tithing, you know the 80-20 principle, you hear that about? Well, this is what's happening in the church. You got, what is it, baby?
Well, 34% tithe.
34%. Wow.
80% are given. 20% of people are only given 80%.
Wow.
And of those people, only 20% of them are giving. You know, it's not, it doesn't balance out, not according to what God has asked us to do.
Wow. So 80% of the people are only doing 20% of the giving.
Yes.
And 20% of the people are doing 80% of the giving. Oh, yeah.
It's within the
and
numbers.
we're talking church, y'all. Now, wow. Well, look at that last one. I just, 26%.
26%.
Just don't give nothing.
And they'll say they don't have it, but I guarantee you they can go to a fast food or go make a purchase, but they don't have it to give God.
That's something. Now let's talk about why you should talk about money in church, or the church families should do that. Well, the biggest reason is that your children are being taught the wrong way or the right way, and you want to teach them the right way. How you use your money, what they see you doing with your money. Just a quick example. We took our money that we pay out every month for bills and put it in stacks of $1 bills, cash, right? And had our children see how that was being put out to pay light bill, gas bill, phone bill. So they could see how much money it took to make that house run. And we kind of used it. It was a little sneaky way too about it. So when you leave these lights on and you leave this on and you you see how much money you're costing us, you know. But it was helpful because sometimes, you know, what's intangible, you don't see it. But then when you see, oh, you know.
Now, when you teach them that, they'll respond. I mean, they follow by example, and we need to lead by example. My grandson gave a jar to my mother last week. A couple of weeks ago, actually, now. And in that jar, it was just a preserve jar. There was a few dollar bills and there was a lot of change. And then when he gave it to her, he said, turn this into the church. This is my tithe.
How about that?
And she showed it to me, which of course is overwhelming to me and made me want to cry, because I'm thinking, he wasn't listening. He hadn't been listening. And all of a sudden, something resonated in his brain that he I need to give something back to the church.
Yes. And how old is he?
He's 19 now.
You know, that's really
took a while, but he got it.
And you know, that's another little nugget. You can take a money jar, whatever that is going to be, that contain could be a syrup bucket as far as that goes. But when you come home every day, take all your change out, put it in that can or that jar, and you'll be surprised how much money is in there at the end of a certain period of time. I did that, and I would give it to my kids. And one time I gave the jar to them, it was $30 in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just surprised that change adds up. But, you know, the kids are very important to teach them. And the same thing with the young people. You know, they don't know anything about credit cards. They're not being taught, or they're being taught wrong because they see us doing it the wrong way. And therefore the marriage fails, right? They get what I see, I'm sure you've seen it. The kids try to do everything their parents did in 2 or 3 years that took them 50 years.
Right.
And how they do it is by credit cards or loans, you know. And so they just get themselves top heavy. What about the goals?
Well, the goals for children: trust God financially, according to Matthew 6:33.
Yep, put them first.
Manage money properly, according to Luke 12:42. And have a joyful marriage, by Proverbs 25:24.
So if I'm not all entangled with money, then I can actually enjoy my marriage.
Life with enjoy that life with your wife.
So many arguments happen just over money, you know.
It does.
And if that's removed, it's not on the table, right?
It goes back to that when we said 90% in a divorce and is related to money.
Now, Luke 16:10 is really important. And so we actually have this one up for you to see, because it's just truth. It's a hard hitter, but it's a truthful. And if you're not faithful in what's least, then you're just not going to be faithful in much. And if you're unjust in the least, you're going to also be unjust in much. And so what we did, you know, we incorporated little things to see how our children would do. And it would reveal things to us that we would see what we need to work with. And so when it came to bicycles and stuff, and they wanted stuff, they had to earn it. They had to work for it. You know, it might have been an allowance that we give them, whatever it was. They earned the money, and then they went and bought it. I can remember they bought their first bicycle, you know, with their money. And I tell you, it's true today with adults. If they have some investment in something that they had to put their money into, it's always better than when they were just given something.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Right.
I've seen that so many times.
If you don't take care of something, and especially when people just constantly giving it to you, you don't value it.
Exactly.
And that is the way God treats us. If we value what He's given us, He's going to give us more. And we appreciate what He's given us, He's going to give us more. So we have to be faithful and just in what He's doing for us for Him to reward us. You don't reward your bad kids when they don't do right. So God's not going to reward us when we don't do right.
Well, you know, you gave me this old car. But I want a new car. So I'm not going to take care of the car you gave me. It's just let it sit on the blocks. But I want a new car. So what you going to tell me?
I'm going to tell you take that old car, you earn you some more money, and you can trade it in on a new car with the money that you've earned, and maybe I may help you a little bit, but I'm putting this ball in your court. You figure it out.
Yeah. You know, if you're not taking care of what you already have, then why do you want more? You know, it doesn't. This is what this is saying. It's not being faithful in what you have as least. So let that principle be a principle of life. Now, we're not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to hit one to show you how this works, because I think I had all of these at one time going on as symptoms, you know. But let's look at past due bills. Had a lot of that. Now, past due bills cause anxiety. And, you know, the interest is running, so now you got excessive credit interest, right? But the problem really is financial ignorance. And ignorance is not meaning you're stupid. Ignorance means in this area, I don't have knowledge. That's all it means. When we were doing financial counseling in Montgomery, I had a lady that worked with the IRS in Birmingham come into Montgomery for our financial counseling. It wasn't that she wasn't intelligent. She didn't know how to balance a checkbook. But once she was taught how to balance the checkbook, she didn't have problems with that no more. What was happening was she wasn't balancing, so she looked in her checkbook saying, oh, I got $1,800. So she'd go ahead and spend. I realized she had the other checks already floating in and come in. Right. And then she said, what happened to my money? It said I had $1,800. It was just financial ignorance. She wasn't stupid. And then, of course, there's self-indulgence.
Well, yeah, you forget sometimes, and I've been guilty of this. What you said, you got X amount of dollars and you think, oh, I got a little wiggle room. But you forget that you got this automatic draft that's coming out of your account every month for, maybe lights or something like that. And then you think, I factored in, I added it up, but then you forgot what else, So sometimes you have to think about actually what's coming out of that account, aside from what you have to do yourself.
Absolutely.
And so many things are set up on automatic drafts. And you forget them, you forget about them, and you think, I still got a little money because I hadn't written, $500 worth of checks, but actually it's being taken from me.
And one way you can tell, look at your statement, look how many overdraft charges you got. If you got 2 and 3 overdraft charges, you need to reevaluate what's going on. Right?
One overdraft charge is enough. That's about $40.
It can be a lot. Well, we asked you earlier what was prosperity and what's wealth. Now, I'm not negative against people that say these things, but sometimes they'll say prosperity preachers, and they say it in a negative way. And I don't have an issue with what they're saying, but I don't want a poverty preacher either. And one of the things that have helped me is listen to people that have been successful. I don't think listening to people that are not successful or haven't ever done anything is going to help you. So you need to have it with a grain of salt when people just throw out cliche stuff about blanket things, about situations that they really may not have knowledge about because they're not listening. They've already came up with their opinion. They say, oh, he's a prosperity preacher. They won't listen to anything they say. Well, you might want to check it out for yourself and make sure that you're listening properly with God's in tune and not just what the person is telling you. Because Deuteronomy 8:18 says God is the one that gives us the power to get wealth. Now, why would he give me power to get wealth if I'm not supposed to have any?
Well, he does give you that power, but he also tells us to study for ourselves. So when people are telling us things,
right.
If we're these stewards of the Bible and we're learning ourselves, we know what's right and wrong. Because it's always going to be false prophets everywhere. Yeah. And so we hear this, but we also have to have a discerning spirit, and we ask God for that. And he definitely can open up our eyes and let us see what is not what we need to hear, Yeah,
because don't misunderstand me. He's giving you the wealth so that you can carry out his word. And be a blessing to others. I cannot be a blessing to others. I'm still struggling trying to pay my own bills. Right? So prosperity is when God does it. I love this verse, Proverbs 10:22. And it says that if the Lord will bless in a way that what he does, it doesn't bring any sorrow with it. Right? And also it doesn't bring any toil with it. And so when God does something, it really is a blessing.
Yes.
Right? And this is what we want to make sure, because you can get things from the world, but it brings anxiety, it brings stress, it brings worry. And there's no blessing in it. You're toiling about it. No peace.
You made me think about myself at one time. I was just complaining in my spirit, because it seemed like every time I look up, somebody was asking me for money, or asking me, can they borrow, can they have, will you? And it became frustrating to me because it's like it was coming from every angle. And I was praying about it in my spirit. But God said these words to me was, I bless you to bless others. And so he does that. He gives us things. And again, it's about the stewardship that we've talked about already. And part of that stewardship is helping others. So, what am I going to do? Be like the foolish rich man that just piles stuff up and die and leave it here? Or am I going to use it like God wants it to be used?
Yeah, that's good, because they actually quote this thing in the scripture. It says, the blessing of the Lord make it rich.
Yeah.
And he has no sorrow with it. The blessings of the Lord make it rich. And he has no sorrow with it. So, you can argue with God about whether
that's right.
You want to argue about that.
I don't think you're going to win.
I don't think so. I'm going to move on to the next one, because you kind of talked about some things I think I want to bring out. If we ask you what your sources of income are, what are some sources? Let's just say some sources, not yours just yet. And obviously you would say work, your job that you have, right? If you've retired and had a pension that you're getting, or an annuity. right? Or those blessed to have a 401k, right? And so some people are getting Social Security checks. So all the investments in security. But the question is, what's your source, right? What is your source, right? Now, don't give a Sunday school answer. Really think about it. Is it all, any of those? But shouldn't it be this? Then God calls all that other, right? And those other are in a situation where they are floating, they're tangible, they are refutable in a sense that is only based on God providing it for us. And so when we begin to look at some of these things, our true sources of wealth, right, is really not money. When God gives us wealth, He gives us some things that like this. That's really salvation.
All right.
That's a lot of wealth right there.
That is definitely security.
That is a lot, and it's not just salvation from the spiritual state of going from hell to heaven, but it's also from sickness to health, and it's also from poverty to wealth. All of that is salvation is a pregnant word. It's not just the saving of our souls. It's called sozo. S-O-Z-O, sozo, and it includes healing, it includes deliverance, it includes wealth. It's a pregnant word. But also, if you got a lot of money, but you don't have no health, it's not going to do you much good, is it?
It's not going to save you.
I mean, it didn't help Steve Jobs, did it?
No, it didn't help a lot of people.
It just takes you so far. But to have a family, I could probably go deviate on this, but I'm not. But you really should value your family. God gave it to you, and you should act like that's what it is. And if you got a job and you're good at something, or you got a profession, you're a calling, you're good at, God gave you that ability there.
Absolutely.
If you understand numbers and you understand these intricate things, they come naturally to you. You ought to thank God for that, because that's something you might want to look at, that He's given you to cause you to prosper, right?
Nothing you do, nothing of you happened because you're you. It's because God has blessed you to be in that.
Take nothing for granted, right?
Take nothing for granted, because just as He gives.
Yeah.
So be appreciative. That's all. That go back to the verse about, He's giving you things to be just, but you've got to show to Him that you're appreciative of it.
You do. You really do. Because you said that way you get more.
You get more.
Right? So, and the Bible is full of promises that God has made. And some of them are conditional. Some of them are not conditional. And we should do whenever you come one that says, if you, meaning you got a part to play, just do that part. But what's this last one? Would you read it?
Yeah, the most important thing God is concerned about in the area of money is our...
That's coming back around, huh?
Did
you read that same one earlier? Our attitude. Yeah, it's our attitude. Yeah, above all else, God is concerned with our attitude. And He's blessed us according to our attitude. It's a cliche, but it's a good one though. Our altitude, how we go up, is determined by our attitude.
That's exactly right.
So, and I also threw this one in too, because the image that you have of yourself. Yeah, or poverty.
Poverty, yeah.
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I could never do that. I never have that. You see yourself, the grasshopper mentality, some of them call it, and it can go either way. You think too much of yourself, or you don't think enough of yourself. But Scripture says you should think highly of yourself, but not too high.
And He said, if you believe it, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So if you believe in God, why can't you go up? Exactly. Why can't you come out of poverty? Why can't you maintain a balance in your life of financial stability? You can do anything if you put God first.
It's really true. And Jesus, He watched people giving money. And He watched them. He's leaning on the car and He's watching them put this money into this thing. And I'll just tell you about this thing right quick. It had a funnel to it. And when they put coins in it, it would go round and round. You've probably seen something like that in the store. And if you put a lot of coins in it,
That's a lot.
big money, it makes this huge noise.
Let me make an analogy. I mean, you know, I spent my few days at the casino. And when you put the coins in and you know how they, like what you're describing, you hear all that cling, 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 and it brings attention and everybody's like looking. So that's the same.
It's the same thing. So when this widow put in her mite, you couldn't hear nothing. Think. But listen,
no heads
Mark
turned.
12, no heads turned. Mark 12:20-41, Jesus' head turned. And he didn't observe what they gave. He observed and watched how they gave. That attitude, you know? And so you can give if you want, and everybody look how much they gave. Well, that was your award on earth.
Exactly.
But I'd rather have my reward coming down from heaven, right? So
that pompousness, that's self-centered spirit.
Mess it up.
Yeah.
Mess it up.
It's all about me.
The money that we have, okay, we kind of touched on this, and it's important. Whose money is this anyway, right? That's something you have to answer. The sooner you settle that in your heart, the more quicker you can really start getting blessed by God. And so, you know, he said, all the silver is mine, all the gold is mine, you know. And if you can come to the point to say all of our finances, all of our possessions belong to God. I mean, every time we got a car, my children do it now. When they get a car, they dedicate that car to God. They dedicate their house to God. They dedicate each other to God, you know, because they are owned by him. And it makes a difference when who's the owner. It really does. So this is you talked about, we mentioned stewardship. Well, let's talk about it just a little bit, because, you know, you could say it's administration of a household and state and the manager, overseer. You can say that, but in Luke 16:2-4 talks about that. But I want to kind of dig in a little deeper. And let's look at, a steward is one who manages, but he doesn't own. He doesn't own. So what do we need to understand?
Well, we must understand and accept that we are merely stewards of God's property. He's letting us control it here on earth, but he is the master controller. And because he is sovereign, he can do whatever he wants to with it. He can give us little or he can do much. And sometimes that's dependent on our attitude that we just already talked about. He doesn't make us or have an ownership of what he has, but he let us use it. And what we do with it actually reflects what kind of person we are.
It tells us who we are. Now, this last statement on this slide, this is one of them kickers. This is one of the things I kind of walked out on. Until a Christian acknowledges God's total ownership, he can't experience God's direction in financial management. And you let that one sink in there for a moment on you. Until a Christian acknowledges God's total ownership, he can't experience God's direction in financial management. You're not going to pay any attention to him if you still got your hands on the wheel.
So when you're saying this is mine, this is I did this, I did that, or this is mine, this is, you know, you've taken it out of the hands of God or tried to, and you put yourself up, so built yourself up to say that I did it, but you can't do anything without God.
When you said that, I went back. I used to work at a poultry plant, and I was doing a lot of traveling. I was a traveling veterinarian and going all these different places, just doing a whole lot. I put all this amount. So it made sense to me to go ahead and buy a car and lease it, right? And get, you know, you had to do it for like 3 years on lease. And then that just made sense to me because the government was sending me, and every time I drove the car, I got money from the mileage. So I said, oh, that would pay for it, right? So I'm figuring out what I was going to do, right? And I didn't pray about it initially, but later on, before I could execute it, I didn't have that job anymore. But I would have had that lease note and no way to pay for it, at least not the way that I thought it was. And so this is like, you know, you plan your own plans without God in it, not knowing God knows what's going to happen around the corner, and we don't.
Exactly.
You know, but stewardship is very important. And so a steward does the best with what he has, but he's also content with God's given him. That's very important. You have to be at peace where you are. It doesn't mean you're going to stay where you are, but you have to be at peace where you are.
Don't get greedy.
And don't even start me up on that one, because that's so much. Isn't that almost
greed takes over.
The love of money is the root of all evil. Not money itself, but the love of it. And you see it tied to every little thing. Oh, well, we ain't gonna jump on that right now. We ain't gonna go on there. What's the next one?
Well, if a Christian will accept the role as a steward and manage God resources according to God's direction, God will continue to entrust us with His things even more.
That's what you said earlier. Yeah. More and more.
Faithful over a few things, make you ruler and rewarder over many.
There you go. And the better managers we are, the more we get to manage.
The more we get to manage.
And the more we'll have. And not only when we do it God's way, you'll have more, but you'll have peace.
You'll have peace.
You know.
Always, isn't it nice to go to bed at night and not have to worry about how I'm going to pay the next bill or how I'm going to do this. This is what this lesson is all about. Having peace. Yeah, checking the call ID. Am I going to answer this phone? Or You
talked about our life stories. Here's another one. And this was back when I was in really financial trouble, right? And I hadn't took the first step toward financial freedom. What that is, we'll tell you what that is in a minute. But we're in this new house, and we're in financial problems, serious problems. And so I'm sleeping, and then the air conditioning comes on. And I tell you the truth, this is the truth. I woke up, sit up straight in the bed, because I knew I couldn't pay the bill.
Take away that peace.
Took away that peace. I woke right up. We was that bad, because I knew I couldn't pay the bill. And so there was no peace.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make the first spiritual step, and this is probably the most important thing of the whole session, because you got to connect it right spiritually first before the rest of it gets right.
Exactly.
So a lot of people, when we have financial class, they think, oh, he's going to talk about money, and bills, and going to talk about, how to save. Eventually, but this is the most important piece: stewardship, management, ownership. Who's that is? The faithfulness, our attitude. If all that's gone wrong, your money can't do nothing for you. It's just going to reflect that attitude. So the first step toward financial freedom is transfer that ownership. Our first step to financial freedom is transferring the ownership of all our possessions to God. Right?
That goes back to what you said. When your kids get in the car or house or whatever, you taught them to pray and dedicate it to God. So you're giving it back to Him. We saw that when children were born in the Old Testament, how when they were born, their parents dedicated them back to God. He's not giving them back literally, but He's giving that, use them, Lord, fix them, help me. So that's what He's saying to us. If we give things back to God, He's going to protect us, and things going to fall in place because we've got the right guidance.
So you relinquish all ownership that you have to God. Mm-hmm. And you become a manager, not an owner, which means you're a steward. And then you have peace because who the owner is. So our peace comes when we rest in who the real owner is, and that's God.
And one thing too, you trust God.
Yeah.
And we know God's going to do us right.
Right.
It's not like we're giving ownership to somebody else that may, take it away from us and sell it from under our
mm-hmm. feet
or whatever. Mm-hmm. We know that God is going to do the right thing. He's going to protect us because He loves us.
Absolutely. I had wanted to say a little bit about some faithfulness, but I just mentioned also this as well, 1 Corinthians 4:2. And God entrusts us at our level of faithfulness to Him, right? And what do you mean when you look at this particular verse in Luke 16:10 and look at Luke 19:12-26? He gave each one of them a talent, but He didn't give them the same amount, right? He gave them different amounts because He gave them and met them at the level of their ability. So don't get mad if you see somebody with a jet, $100,000, this and that. That's not the issue. he's allowing people to have at the level of their ability. And so the person that he gave this one talent to was supposed to at least get interest from it. He just buried it. He didn't do anything. The one that got 2, he doubled it. The one that got 5, double that. So he gave what the one didn't do, he gave it to the one that the 10 did. Which you wouldn't think that was fair, but in God's economy it is. So whatever you have, use it to the best of your ability, because he's giving you based on your ability at that level. But it can grow, definitely. But we must recognize our level of management and start right there where that is. And also, a man is responsible for the management of his household before God. You guys out there? A man is responsible for the management of his house. His wife is not responsible for the management of his household. But it is how we manage this area that opens up or closes our faith to develop in other areas.
Wow.
That was another one of those walkout moments for me, okay? So, this attitude check here's the question. Do I consider that everything I own belongs to God and consistently seek his will first before making decisions regarding my finances? Do you do this always, often, occasionally, never? Hopefully it's not the last one, but if it is, at least now you recognize I need to not be in that position. And that's really what this teaching is about, to move you off the needle.
One thing I want to say is we're not perfect, because we don't do this all the time. I'm going to say myself, I don't do it always. I can't say I do it always. I try to do it often. Sometimes I may not even think of it right then. I may think of it later. You know, I recently bought a bedroom suit, and I was thinking about it. A couple of days passed by, and I thought, I never dedicated this back to the Lord. And I had to take a moment. Like I said, it didn't happen when it came in the house. It took a couple of days for the light bulb to come on in my head to say, you didn't dedicate this back to God. So things that God give us, you know, we got to be faithful, good stewards over it. And actually, we're showing obedience and love to him.
Trust.
And our trust, yes, our faithfulness, because he does so much for us that we don't even know. So those things that we are aware of, we should take a conscious effort to say thank you and, you know, dedicate it back to him.
Absolutely. The next one is how much of our time, talents, and energy and ability am I spending to acquire more money? And is it 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%? It shouldn't be the higher numbers. It should be the lower numbers. You shouldn't have all your time and energy trying to pursue money, right? Yeah, and another way of putting this is you shouldn't have 4 or 5 jobs. If you really dedicated your life to God and trust him with your employment, he will give you the one job that makes enough money that you don't need 5 jobs. So, and then of course, do your possessions belong to you or God? Do they own you or do you own them? You know, so like the man said, Pastor, pray for me. I got this new job. I can't come to church anymore. Please pray for me. He said, okay, I'll pray for you. So the pastor said, Lord, take that job away from him. He said, wait a minute, Pastor, don't pray for me. He said, well, you was coming to church before you got the job.
Well, be careful what you ask for.
Oh, now this one will show you what, you know, who's first place in your life, because you know you can get a Sunday school answer and so forth. But if you look at your tax returns, if you look at your checkbook, and you look at how much you made, okay, we write in 2021. So how much did you make in 2020? Right. How much did you make? And did you give 10% of that amount to God?
No doctorate records like some politicians we know that will, you know, each year depreciate so they don't pay as much taxes. We'll leave that unnamed. No matter what we do, God knows.
He knows. You know, that tells, remember, how you give is an outside indicator of an inward spiritual condition. Your money is telling on you. It's either saying yes or it's saying no. But we need to get back in alignment. Enough of the problems. What we need to do is get spiritually close. Have a spiritual close relationship with Jesus. Seriously. I mean, we just came off of 21 days of prayer and fasting. It helped me. It helped me. No news, no social media. I needed that. I didn't need to have 24 hours of news coming into my soul. But you got to get a closer, the time I need to spend needs to be more with him than the TV.
Scripture, obey God's word.
Yeah.
Tithe.
Yeah. Obedience is better than sacrifice.
That's right.
It really is.
It's not just a preacher preaching at you. It's actually biblical.
Now, naturally, there's some things we should do and have to do. I mean, we are spiritual beings, but we're in a natural world, and there are things we got to do. You know, we have to eat, we have to have clothing, we have to have shelter, but we also have to plan, short and long-term planning on retirement, our wills and estate planning. And you know, y'all attend a financial workshop, and we want to put one on, you know, if the Lord give us the opportunity to do so we can really, we kind of like hitting across the highlights of stuff, but, you know, a real financial workshop is what's really needed. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about tithing. I'm not at this point, but it does show your level of stewardship. You know, it just reflects where your heart is about with God, right? And what else it does?
Reveals your trust and relationship to God's word. Again, we talked about obedience.
It really does. I mean, God gives us 90% to keep. Who does that? The federal government sure don't.
No.
They take their part out before you even get it.
They take it off the top.
And
what if God did that for us?
Yeah. And here's the beauty of it. The government takes from me, right?
Right.
Before I even get it. But I turn around and give to God what I have off the top. Right? So my giving to God shows a better attitude than what the state and the government has done for me, right? So you're really blessing him with the right attitude, right?
Who does the most for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you know, we just can't get around this as an outward indication of inward spiritual condition. There's something to just chew on. And we talked about who the source was. Well,
God is
you
source.
Know, I had a lady one time, I don't think she meant wrong, but I think she was just challenging me, and that was fine, because I kept talking about the first thing need to be done is of your income, we go to God. And she said, well, I have automatic payments and stuff coming out all the time. You know, that's going to be the first one. And, you know, I understand that that's really legalistic in thought process. But the first thing that you do, you know, the payments are automatic. You've already got those set. And if you really want to get into that, you can still pay before those, because you know when they're going. I mean, if you really want to look at it. But the heart attitude is what you're talking about. You want to make sure you're giving him first, not at the end of the month and you don't have anything
whatever's left.
You know,
you're not giving him the scraps.
Yeah, you know, that's not going to be the right attitude. That's going to be a blessing for you. And when you do it right, you got protection, provision, and blessing. I mean, really, I pray a prayer now. Thank you, Lord, for the things that didn't happen to me. There's a lot of things God's taking care of that you don't have no idea what, you know, was prevented, right? So then you can retire.
Some people.
I'm retired about 5 years now. Here I am in Cayman Islands, and I am in the Caribbean Sea, the Western Caribbean Sea, and I took my whole family there for Christmas. This was several years ago. I think this was 2017. But anyway, don't be envious. But
was that scriptural?
So anyway, retirement. You know, here's some things that, you know, we have scriptures for that you can think about, and the ages that people do this, the scriptures that can back those up. And you know, if you change occupations, you know, actually the priest did, you know, in Psalms 50, theirs was 65, and you should start as early as possible as far as, you know, saving for it, you know, and don't rely. I mean, if the Social Security check is the only thing you got coming in, that you're not in good shape. Really, that's not the way you want to.
Now, when people
set up
talk
a
about
retirement plan.
cutting it out now,
Yeah, they always talk about
years,
it.
you know.
Now, in inheritance, all right. Now, this is a sad fact, but it's the truth. 80% of our Americans will die without a will. Well, if you die without a will, every state's different. But if it's in Alabama and you die, the spouse gets the first $50,000. Yeah. But after that, the state decides to get the rest. And it may go to people you have no intention of receiving anything. So, and even if you had a will and you don't probate it after 5 years, then it becomes invalid. Did you know that? Right? Tell us about these.
Well, what a wife should know when her husband dies, or vice versa. But what about the burial? Probate, proven in a will. Does it exist or what? Your insurance, you got to think about that. It's cash versus annuities. Your land, other virtual properties, ownership. Does he own that? Or who owns it? Social Security. how to apply for that. Your retirement income, the survivorship benefit, and the VA benefits, the death and burial associated with that. These are things you should be aware of.
Oops, let me go back.
And it's not bad to talk about that, you know, and plan. We're not going to be here forever, so we may as well talk about it. I know.
You really should, because what happens a lot of times, the person dies and nobody knows anything. They're just scrambling through the house trying to find stuff. And I tell you, a lot of things, accounts that they didn't know that they didn't have. After 7 years, the state owns them.
And you know, people come out of the woodwork and when money's involved.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll find this person is my daddy, this person is my brother, this is my sister, that's my mom.
Twice removed.
All these ghost people will show up. So, you know, put all that in writing.
Yeah, now our situation is different. We've been married before, and all our children are grown and married. Well, most of them. She has some that's not married, right?
Well, my children are grown and married,
right?
But
So
they're out of the house.
They're all grown and grown. My kids I got 5 grandkids. And so early in our relationship, we talked about money, like we're talking about now. And we ended up listing all that we had. We knew that. And we actually did a prenuptial agreement. Not because we didn't trust each other. We were looking out for our children. Just what was said. And so you need to do what you're supposed to do while you're in good mind and you can think things out. And it takes away all of put everything on the table. You know, you shouldn't be getting into a relationship and find out you're paying alimony, you know.
Well, the way I look at it, if you're a couple and you pay all your bills, you got $50 left for the next couple of weeks. And if 90% of our marriages are ending because of divorce, over $50 is left for 2 weeks. What do you think the fights are going to be like with kids and other people that you don't know about come in and start claiming that I have some relationship with the person that's just deceased, and then it becomes ugly, and it could be, you know, legal ramifications, and some people die over, you know, fighting over it. Some people end up dying. So why do that when we know we have what we have and we know where we want it to go?
So both of us have wills.
Yeah.
You know, and they're current. So we look at Social Security now. A lot of people losing a lot of money here because they don't know what to do. You can teach a class on this by itself. So I'm just going to hit high points. If you take it at 62, then you automatically got a cut for the rest of your life of income you would have received. Now, some people have to take it because of conditions of health, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that. But everybody's not like that. Some people can go to their full retirement age, right? Ours is 66. Yours is based on what the IRS has said based on your age of birth. But you want to go to 70 if you can. If you're not in a situation where you can, health-wise, so forth, understood. But every year you don't file it, it's 8% increase of interest. And I don't know of anything that's paying 8% right now. The bank should not have a savings account now. But every year it's an 8% increase in that amount. And there's different ways to file. A spousal benefit, a lot of them don't do that. They end up taking out their own themselves when they could have took the spousal benefit and let their own continue on up to the 70, right? And you get more money out at that time because whoever's making the most money ought to retire on that person's benefit. A widow benefit, some people have lost their husbands and didn't get a penny from it because they didn't even know about the widow benefit, right? And divorce benefit, you mean there's a benefit if I got divorced? Yes. Yes, and he doesn't have to agree to it for you to get it.
That doesn't mean you go out and get a divorce. Get rid of it.
I think most of them know about disability benefit.
Oh, okay.
But on this one, I'm going to just go on through some forms. I'm just actually going to skip this one at this point because I want to get to this one. We have a Facebook page. It's private. It's called Enjoying the Journey, Marriage is Our Ministry. We'd like for you to join that one, and you'll find this form there. And you can take this form and pray over it and fill it out, because this is how you would transfer ownership of what we talked about. You need to physically do it and sign your name to it, and that's available to you there. We also have, we're looking at what's God's mission and vision in your life first, as opposed to, just trying to get into a profession. What is God's calling in your life? And then you build your livelihood, your profession around that. That's really the way. So we're asking for a mission statement for the husband and a mission statement for the wife. And these questions help you get that done. That's that worksheet. Then you can come up with your life plan where you put that mission statement here, and then your immediate goals to meet that mission statement, and your short-term goals for your ministry, personal goals, and long-term goals. And of course, most people know about their personal ones, but here they are now: auto, college, wedding, etc. And then here's your retirement goals you put about. And again, your current financial status, how much money you're making a month, how much you're spending a month, how much is left over. Now, my first wife, we went into a Larry Kid ministry in the woods for a 3-day seminar type thing. And we had these questions, and we were like in our 20s. And we went through these things and developed a financial plan. Even though we didn't have children at that time, we made plans about how we wanted to raise our children, who was going to be at home, both of us professionals, who's going to stay there. And we made decisions that really turned out to be quite beneficial to our kids. It really did, because we said, okay, we're going to have them in Christian school up until 6th grade. Then after 6th grade, we're going to put them in, and God gave us these ideas. Then he's going to put them in public school, because we want to have a foundation in Christian school, but we want it challenged, right? So they can stand up under what's been taught. That really turned out to be good. So you really got to have some time to put together. And then this is the last one that I want you to do and have ready for the next meeting that we meet in February. This is the first step to getting your budget. Because a lot of times it's not the money that you have. You had so much came that pay period, but you don't know the next period. Where did the money go? And so for every expenditure you do, up to like $1, anything over $1, you write down what it was, what you spent it on, and then this is what I call tracking, your monthly expense tracking for 30 days. So at the end of 30 days, you can see what you did with monies that was cash mostly. You might have your checks and stuff like that and your credit cards, but you want to list everything so you can see where your money is going, and then we can develop this budget based on what you're actually doing. And then, of course, here's the income levels here. But this will be something we ask you to fill out and have ready. We don't need to see it, but this will be what you would prepare. One of the goals for the class, the workshop, would be at the end of it, you have your own budget developed.
All right. And one thing you want to consider is to factor in inflation, because you can't make a budget in 2021 and think that budget's going to work in 2030. You got to factor in some inflation costs in there.
Absolutely.
So, and it's forever rising, but yeah, you want to think about that.
I think I've got a picture of the website as we come to a close here, I believe. Yeah, this is Join Your Journey, Marriage is Our Ministry. Of course, it's the class we're going to be having today, as you're listening to now. These are some of the forms I was talking about. So that's available to you to see. And we are enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you. Happy New Year, late, but
manage your money.
Yeah, manage your money.
Bye.
Bye-bye.